Lawyers of Reddit, what was your "oh, I'm definitely winning this one" moment? I had a client who had a pretty severe slip and fall in a pharmacy. In my state, we are not allowed to see surveillance of the subject until after the deposition or other similar testimony is taken. The rule is in place to protect defendants, so we don't coach the client based on what we see in the video. Anyway, we take the deposition, then they send the video. Not 30 minutes later I get a call from opposing counsel wanting to settle. The video revealed that my client had fallen, passed out and peed herself. She was very elderly and very hurt. The manager of the store had an employee put signs out showing wet floor and mop up around the lady, all while she was unconscious, all before calling 911. Settled that one for the policy limits right there. I was defending a company being sued for kicking a customer out for being drunk. He showed up to trial, small claims, wasted at 10 AM. The judges in small claims are lenient on process, they like to adjudicate on the merits. So we started. He is the plaintiff, so he goes first. Can barely stand during his opening statement. Knocks over his shopping bag full of evidence. Just awful. The court put a stop to it and ruled in my client's favor. The only words I spoke were putting my name on the record. This is peak small claims court, and I love it. Beats my second favorite small claims case where the person suing her sister for stealing her ruby bracelet showed up wearing the bracelet. The shopping bag of evidence was what puts you up to number 1. I was a complete newbie attorney, practicing bankruptcy, which I had no experience in prior to this job. So little experience, in fact, that basically all I had been told relevant to this particular case was this: if someone has filed for a Chapter 13 bankruptcy and their car has recently been repossessed, the creditor has to give it back, or you can sue them for money sanctions. And while that is often true, it is not the full story, and it differs slightly depending in the jurisdiction. Anyway, I file a very basic motion for sanctions. We want car. They won't give car. We want an order for the car and money sanctions. However, a day or two before the hearing, opposing counsel files a response that lays out some pretty solid reasoning for why they didn't have to give back the car. I enjoyed working at that firm, but one thing they lacked was a more technical understanding of bankruptcy law. They weren't bad attorneys, but not many there had really ever cracked open the bankruptcy code and read more than a few relevant parts. Maybe a good analogy would be a religious person who has an understanding of their religious text from having been preached to, but not ever really reading the book itself. So here I am, a newbie attorney, with second-hand knowledge of the bankruptcy code, a day away from arguing a very technical case, and all I can get from anyone is basically a shrug. Go get 'em, kid. I spent all day and most of the night before preparing for the hearing, and frankly, his argument did make a lot of sense. But I came up with a marginal counter-argument, and I was ready to at least not embarrass myself at the hearing. Like a true newbie, I get to the podium and just launch into this very technical assessment of the case. My knees are shaking, and it becomes clear as I continue, from the judge's puzzled expression, that the judge had no idea what I was talking about, what the facts of the case were, or what the other side's argument was. The judge silences me with a hand. Opposing counsel, their motion says they didn't get the car back. Why not? Well, Your Honor, based on this law, you have to give the car back, but Your Honor, there is an exception for. No, you have to give the car back. In other jurisdictions, there is an exception for. Counsel, I will fine your client $50,000 per day until the car is returned. We ultimately worked out a settlement in the hallway where the client got their car back, some money sanctions, and our attorney's fees. The attorney called their client and essentially explained that he thought they had a winning position, but it was clear that the lower court judge was not having it, so it was probably cheaper to settle rather than have to appeal. As it happens, since then the same issue has been litigated a couple of times in front of some other judges in this district, and the results are all over the map, and I think the Court of Appeals will eventually need to give a ruling. But as soon as I heard this judge raw $50,000 per day, I knew I had lucked into winning that case. This is going to read like it belongs in r/that happened. My dad saw the video, which was famous at his firm. Workers can't claim for a back injury that seems suspicious, so they sic a private investigator on the guy after a while, which is fairly common. PI comes back with a video of the guy batting softball batting practice, torquing his back over and over. Exactly what he says he can't do. Okay, whatever. People get caught all the time. The camera pans. And who is shagging balls in the outfield? Opposing fucking counsel. So, yep, case dropped and the judge took it up with the bar. Truck driver changed his story on the stand about how the accident happened from what he had always said previously. Next on the stand, the police officer who had responded to the scene gives this new version too. I asked him on cross when he heard this new version, and he said, in the hallway, just before I came in. Oh, I'm definitely winning this one. Not my case, but during my aunt's divorce. Custody case. Wasn't really one hearing per se, but over multiple hearings. My aunt wanted full custody of the kids. She initially had custody, but uncle was allowed to see the kids every other weekend under supervision. Uncle was abusive, nasty even to the kids, even under supervision. Social services reported his behavior, and at hearings he was rude and arrogant to the judge, wouldn't listen and even walked out on a few occasions. Even his barrister thought he was a piece of shit. He made it obvious he didn't give a shit about the kids, and he and his mother declared on a few occasions that the kids were a result of incest between their mother and her father. Yeah, he dug his own grave with that one. Judge ruled that normally father will get some custody at least, but he was making an exception and banning him from coming near the kids until they're 18. Aunt got full custody. Opposing party, mum, stands up while the justice is speaking, interrupts, and says I can't force my children to do something they don't want to do. For context, the justice was talking about how dad, my client, needed to have some parenting time. Mum had alienated the kids and was claiming that they didn't want to see him. Opposing counsel, who had most definitely not anticipated her client doing this, just lowers her head and closes her eyes. I stand up and say if mum can't control her children, then perhaps she should not be the primary parent. The justice replies, and I'll be available to hear it when you make that application, Mr. Oljoff the law. That said, I knew I had one when mum stood up earlier and questioned the qualifications of the psychologist she had suggested, when said psychologist came back with a report that my client should have parenting time. Not a lawyer, just one of the folks gathering documents. The company got an unexpected demand letter claiming we provided a defective piece of equipment and wanting big bucks for the cost of repair and all the downtime it caused. Our in-house lawyer immediately thought something was up. Letters like that are never out of the blue. They're always preceded by phone calls and emails, and he always got looped in on those. So when he called me up to have the document preservation chat, he also wanted me to pull and print all emails as soon as possible. There weren't many, maybe 30 mentioning the company, 22 were from the company, and all of them, save 3, were from when they bought the machine over a year before. The last email was the only one I actually printed, and I decided to deliver it myself with one line highlighted. Was surprisingly intact for being hit by a motorcycle going that fast. I had never seen our company lawyer smile, nor laugh, but he was doing both as soon as he read it. If you enjoy these videos, please consider subscribing